Really? No one else, everyone else can get to their landscape mode and portrait mode and everything? Beautiful. You guys are awesome. We can jump straight into what our scene modes actually do. Okay, now this is the important bit. This is the important bit that I want you to take home. I'm going to start showing you the method of operation that you need to be able to start taking photos, good photos or better photos right away using just your scene modes. Because when you're in automatic, the camera's not letting you do anything except point and click. Now we're actually giving the camera a set of directions. We're going to make some decisions ourselves. So you need to turn your brain on, you need to have an opinion, you need to know what you want. Have a look at these two shots. What do you notice about them? Look at the background. The background is blurry. That's a specific kind of shot that photographers call a low depth of field shot. And they use low depth of field shots to make viewers look at something important. Like the child is important in this shot. We don't want to distract the viewer to anything else but the child. So we take a low depth of field shot focusing on the child. Now I wonder if you can see, there's a man sitting there. And this is the corner of a table. They're at a restaurant, but you don't see any of that, you just see the child. So that's a style of photography called low depth of field photography, and the idea is to focus your attention on something, one thing, maybe two things, and ignore everything else. Similarly with this one, with the little twig and the berries at the top. It's not a person, but we want that low depth of field, blurry background effect. So we choose portrait mode to give us a low depth of field. So I want you to remember that blurry background effect, you use portrait mode, and if you want to enhance the blurriness, make it even blurrier, rather than stand close to someone with your camera, stand a little bit back and zoom into them. The more zoom you use, the blurrier the background will become. And here's another point though, the background does actually have to be quite some distance from them to achieve this. If your background is here, it doesn't matter what mode you use, that's going to be sharp as well. So what portrait mode and zooming does is it separates a subject from its background. Okay? It gives depth to the shot, so it looks like there's some distance between them. But it can only do that if there is actually distance between them. Macro mode, those of you with the flower symbol, also called close-up mode in some cameras. It also gives you a low depth of field, but it gives you the added benefit of being able to step closer to the subject. Normally, with your camera, you can only, maybe this is the minimum distance you need to be to focus on something. If you get any closer, you just can't focus. But if you put macro mode on, you can now get really close, sometimes this close to your subject, and focus. But, yes?
You have to have a double steady hand if you're going really, really close.
Yes, you do, yeah. Question was, do you have to have a double steady hand? Usually you do, yes. Quickly. So, remember that macro mode also gives you a low depth of field, like portrait mode, but it lets you get closer to the subject, but it does something else as well. It actually gives you a slightly blurrier background than portrait mode will. So if you want more blur, use macro mode. Now the opposite of what we call a low depth of field shot is this kind of shot, a high depth of field shot. Now if you've been in automatic all your life using cameras, this is the kind of shot you'll be used to, because automatic tends to default by taking a high depth of field shot. It says, I'll get everything in focus just in case. Okay? A high depth of field shot is characterized by the foreground being nice and sharp, the midground all the way to the horizon, nice and sharp. High depth of field, and we achieve that with landscape mode. The Lumix cameras call it scenery mode. And it's designated usually by mountains and clouds and things like that. So the difference here, when you're using a high depth of field shot, you're wanting to tell the whole story. So here, I'm wanting to tell the story of the boy at the car show so that you can see he's at a car show. But let's say I wanted to change the story and I wanted it just to be about the boy. I'd zoom in on the boy and I'd use a low depth of field. I'd switch to portrait mode and you wouldn't be able to tell that he was at a car show. You'd just see some colours in the background, some blurry colours in the background. And it'd be just about him. So by using different modes, you can tell different stories at the same place. This is where you need to turn your brain on and say, which kind of shot do I want? If I want this kind of shot, switch to landscape mode. If I want to tell the story of just the boy, switch to portrait mode. Zoom in on the boy.
The landscape mode tends to flatten the picture, though.
Yeah, flattens it, makes it all look like it's in the same plane. Yeah. Landscape mode. Yeah. Flattens the shot. That's one way of describing it. Fast shutter speeds are used to freeze fast action. Look at both of these boys here. They're midway through doing a backflip. This boy's jumping into the pool, but it looks like he's standing on water. You can only achieve this kind of result where you're frozen fast-moving motion with a fast shutter speed. And the only way that you can get a fast shutter speed with most point and clicks is to click sports mode. You can also click kids and pets mode, because kids and pets never sit still. So you need a fast shutter speed to freeze them. Yeah? Wouldn't that be great to be able to do that in real life? Click and they're still. Well, you can sort of do it. So fast shutter speeds use sports mode uses a fast shutter speed to freeze fast action. That's that kind of shot. On the other end of the spectrum, a slow shutter speed uses what's called a long exposure. It keeps the shutter open for a long period of time, sometimes whole seconds rather than click. It stays open for click, click. Now, slow shutter speeds are used when there's low light. There's not much light. The camera stays open for longer to gather more light. Now, at this particular place, when I took this photo, you couldn't actually see the people. They were too dark. They were in complete darkness. Those buildings in the background are only dimly lit. But by using a slow shutter speed, keeping the shutter open for a long period of time, the lights appear to be much brighter in the shot. But here's the thing. With a slow shutter speed, anything that moves becomes blurry. So you need a tripod or hold the camera very steady to keep the buildings nice and sharp. If they were moving, they'd be blurry. But I told them to stand still. I also put it into what's called night portrait mode, because night portrait mode uses a slow shutter speed plus a little pop of flash to light them up. Okay? Do all cameras give you the flash? In night portrait mode, all cameras that have night portrait mode, which is designated by the person with the moon or the person with stars in the background. Yeah? Night portrait, if you were to take this shot in automatic, the camera would pop the flash up and use a fast shutter speed to freeze everything. And what the resulting shot would look like is you'd get them looking like this, but you wouldn't see these buildings at all. They'd just be black. But by using night portrait mode, it uses the flash plus a slow shutter speed. The slow shutter speed gives you the buildings in the background and then a pop of flash to put them in the scene.
So that flash will come on even though you've got a full...
Even though you've turned it off, yes. So just keep that in mind. Remember, sports mode gave us a fast shutter speed to freeze motion. Slow shutter speed with night mode will give us a slow shutter speed and anything that moves becomes blurry, but we also gather more light from a low lit scene. Don't worry, we'll get to practice this in a second. Those of you lucky enough to have fireworks mode, you can do some really cool things with this mode. Not just fireworks. Have a look for fireworks mode. It's usually this kind of symbol here. Fireworks mode is a really slow shutter speed. So night mode will probably use shutter speeds of 0.5 second to 1 second. So the shutter goes click, click. Fireworks mode uses sometimes up to 4 seconds shutter speed. So it'll go click, click. So if you move the camera in those 4 seconds, this shot will be blurry. So anything that moves becomes a trail or blurs itself. So a point of light, like a firework moving through the sky, draws itself across the sensor within that time. Similarly, those shots you see of cityscapes with the cars and trailing through the city, you'll get that kind of shot with fireworks mode.
What about the moon sometimes?
If the moon doesn't move very much in 4 seconds, so if you shake the camera, yes, the moon will be blurry, yes. Okay. Oh, question.
Would that work with water?
Would that work with water? Yes, anything that moves becomes blurry. Yeah.
So my
All right, exam time. We're going to go through different situations and you're going to aim for these results. I want you to do it by setting it up in your camera right here, right now, as if you were standing there. So, you're standing here, it's sunny, it's daytime. The shot you want is for the foreground, the grass at your feet, that rock in the middle of the pond, and the mountain in the background to be nice and sharp. What mode do you put it in? Let's dial it up now. Don't tell me, do it. I want you to do it. Here it is, landscape mode. See, the mountain even gave you a clue. Can you remember what this kind of shot is called? What is it called? What kind of depth of field? It's a high depth of field shot. Good. It's a mountains and clouds, or just mountains. Yep. Here's the situation. It's sunny, daytime. The family is posing. They're not actually moving that much. I'm just getting them to pretend they're jumping up. They're sharp. The waves are actually quite sharp, and so is the horizon. Who said portrait? Why did you say portrait? Because they're people? No. Think about the result. The result I want, the foreground sharp, midground sharp, and all the way to the horizon is sharp. That's a landscape. This is a high depth of field shot. I purposely tried to throw you by putting people in it. So most people would think it's person, so I'll put it into portrait.
See, what's happened though, since the original digitals came out, is you have to choose either or. This has got everything. Now you don't get everything. You have to choose. This has got portrait with scenery, so you get flesh tones plus you get sharp depth of field.
Yeah, you can do that. Mm-hmm.
You don't get this many choices every day.
Probably not, no. Landscape mode for this shot will give you the most chance of getting this shot.
Landscape.
Scenery mode, sorry.
Oh, okay. That's
Scenery is the same as landscape.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Scenery equals landscape.
Tell you the truth, there isn't that much difference between beach and landscape mode. Yeah.
Okay.
Now this is pretty much the same situation, but we want to tell a different story here. Okay, it is sunny, it's daytime. The family is moving this time, especially those little girls. They're running quite fast. The ripples they're kicking up, it's frozen. Those waves are frozen. How do I get that shot? This is a fast shutter speed shot. Yes, sports mode. Now here's where it becomes important that you do choose the correct mode. If I tried to take this shot in automatic, these girls would have been blurry. The mum and dad might have been blurry. But by choosing sports mode, I'm getting more of a chance of freezing the fast action. Here's the situation, shaded, daylight. The father's only about 1 metre behind them, but he's quite blurry, as you can see. How do we get that result? We get it with portrait or macro. Portrait is enough for this one. And what kind of shot is this? Small or low or shallow or narrow? Depth of field. Low depth of field shot, yes. So it's portrait mode. Macro mode would have worked as well. Here's the situation. Sunny, daytime. The family is not moving yet. The waves are frozen and sharp. This was the last shot of the day. We wanted to do something fun, so I said, okay, let's stand there and I want you to pretend as if there wasn't a wave coming. See who couldn't manage it? Mum couldn't quite manage it. She could... No, have a look. These waves are moving, but they're frozen. Look there. You can see every little drop as a sphere. That's sports mode, yeah. So if you want to freeze action, things that are moving fast, you need sports mode. This is a sports mode shot. Make it blur, yes. Here's the situation. Sunny, daytime, everyone is posing, no one's moving. Those mangoes are sharp, they're sharp, the grass is sharp, trees are sharp, the clouds are sharp. Landscape, it is a landscape, it is a high depth of field shot. I wonder if you notice all of these, because we just picked all of the mangoes off the tree and I thought I needed the mangoes in the tree for this shot. So I photoshopped a couple of mangoes back into shot. Now this is a tricky one, okay? Just have a think about this one before you answer and before you switch right away. Here, the situation, the kids are cloudy, the day is cloudy, the kids are running. But you can see the background is blurry, but they are frozen. Sports mode or kids and pets. The thing that's telling about this shot is that they're frozen. If you were to put this into portrait mode, you wouldn't guarantee of getting them frozen. Okay? If you put it into sports mode, you will get them frozen and you may get a blurry background, especially if you zoom in on them. Yes? Yes, that's a good point. She's raised a great point there. Sports mode really only works well when there's enough light in the environment. Okay? So I wouldn't use it even in a bright room. A bright room, a well-lit room, is not bright enough for sports mode to really work. So if you're hoping to catch a ballerina leaping through the air at a concert with only stage lighting, it's not going to work.
What would you use?
You'd use one of these cameras and flashes and yes, and special lenses which are designed to do that. The lenses cost more than the cameras, believe me. They cost more than the photographer sometimes. So sports mode for this shot. I've done that one, okay. There's a Kelpie, shaded daylight, the dog is puffed out, and do you know how long it took me to puff this dog out? The people wanted a nice shot of the dog sitting still because all the shots of this dog were blurry. Okay, so I got a tennis ball, threw the ball as far as I could, and I had to do that for about an hour before it would actually sit still. Yeah, so I got more tired than the dog did, just for one shot. But if you notice this shot, the eye is very sharp, but the nose is very blurry. And the tip of the ear is blurry. Now the dog's head's only this big, so only this much in the middle is nice and sharp. What mode is that? This was portrait or macro. In fact, macro mode would have worked better for you for this shot.
You'd have to get close to the dog.
Yes, you would. Yes.
I just wanted to apologise for our data projector. Some of it is our projector and not. And I'm really embarrassed about it because they're such beautiful photos. So please, it's nothing to do with me. It's our equipment that we're hoping to get.
It's fine. Here's the situation.